Hello, good morning. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We're super excited to have you here. It's our last webinar for the year, and we are finishing on a bang. This is big insights, big thoughts. We're going to talk to you about the possibility because that's the inspiration we all need right now. I was just chatting with Lindsay, who's joining us today, saying we're all feeling a little bit tired, and that's normal. We're at the pointy end of the year, but I'm super grateful for having everybody here today. We have a nice group with us today, so we're going to make it really interactive. So for anyone who has questions, we're going to get you to use the chat box. We're going to get you to really dig deep and ask those big questions. We've got the incredible Lindsay McGrath with us today, and myself, Angela Shelton. I know all the names on this list, but for some of you who don't know me as well, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm the CEO of Answers for Associations. We bring a collective group of voices to you that's all about community and support and helping you think big and grow and put you in touch with the people that can help accelerate that. So today's session, like I said, is going to be a big one. We've got the fantastic Lindsay McGrath. He's the director of Think Outside Group. A few of you may have seen him before, and you will know he is not the typical strategist. He's been in the trenches. He's rebuilt organizations from the ground up. He's done the hard work that we're all doing. And because he's had such great success, he's now gone out to that consulting realm so he can help showcase that on a much bigger scale and share those insights with you and hopefully a few little secrets. So Lindsay, thank you for joining us. I hope I've given you an incredible introduction.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Ange, and you, Emily. It's always fun. We always have a good time and always learn something.
I love that. So we are going to hand it over to Lindsay to take you through today's session. It is going to be interactive. I believe he has some slides. So he's going to pop those up for you. We're going to be in the chat box. So pop your questions in. Let us know where you're here from today and what is your burning question you want to get out of it. Over to you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Ange. Really appreciate it. So just a quick check to make sure the technology is working for everybody. Okay. Okay. Now I can't see the chat, so I'll pause intermittently if Emily and Angela, if you guys can run through, and I'll change screens and make sure I can see what's on the chat. Good morning. Today's all about strategic growth. So we all want more revenue. That's why you're all here, because more revenue equals more opportunity, and it allows us to grow our association. Because the one thing we know that every member will want is more. All of our membership and clients accordingly, whether you're a sponsor, a director, a CEO, or you're running the marketing and comms part of your association, the expectation is 2026, which is just around the corner, your members are going to want more. They're going to expect more. And that's a natural part of the world that we live in. To deliver that, we've got to always be looking at increasing our revenue. And to be able to do that, we need to do more good. So because revenue equals doing good, because that's the fundamental reason we all exist from an association point of view. So how to create revenue is quite a big question, but you've always got to start somewhere. So what I want to, I suppose, start with, and Angela gave a great introduction, but I'm very practical when it comes to helping associations create revenue. I've been a CEO, I've been president, I'm currently a director of multiple associations. I run my own business. I've sat in small business, large corporations, and in the non-for-profit space. A lot of the consistent messaging around growth is really having a solid plan, and also but having that flexibility of the plan of adapting to what's going right and wrong, because you don't know what the opposition is going to do. You don't know what your client's going to do or what your member's going to ask when that phone rings or that email comes through. So you have to have consistency around strategy, but also build into the strategy the opportunity for expansion, being nimble, being creative. And I think associations do that so well. I like to think of strategy as a bit of a protein boost. That's very much how I run my business. Is that protein boost to not put fat on the association, but really focus on that financial muscle to make sure that we can keep growing. So the basics. Let's start with the key thing around strategy is alignment. You have to have your constitution aligned with the program. Otherwise, the incongruence of those two will basically mean someone's going to say no. Either the board's going to say no to the pitch, or it won't resonate long term. It won't resonate long term with your client base. So alignment and constitution is pretty straightforward. You go constitution at the top, your board has a responsibility around setting strategy along with leadership, CEO and the senior leaders, and then delivery from an employees or volunteers point of view. And so that's always the first part, but there's always nuances and different timelines depending on what role you're in. So key responsibilities, we look at this from a governance funnel point of view, or what I call a dual governance funnel, where you have the board at the top of the screen, as you can see, around setting vision and purpose, objectives and insights. That moves down to leadership and moves to employees. But where we get a bit confused in associations, depending on the size of your association, is the old term around boards around nose in, hands out. We want the board to understand and have clear guidelines, clear strategies, and the ability to oversee the organisation. We want to build every association up where the board remains strategic and allows the volunteers and the employees to actually get on with the day-to-day and make it work. When these delegation of authority tend to mix up, depending on the stage of the organisation, or it might even be a project, once you delegate, it becomes a slave of two masters. You start getting a real confusion around who is responsible for the strategy. So I find this particular model works really well. To help continue on with the basics around the reason we do strategy is to create value, because it's all about change management. And you're always asking someone to move or change their decision from where they currently are to where they're heading. And that's all about value creation. And with associations, it's often around attraction, retention, and growth of either the membership or the use of a particular program. This model can apply to the entire association or down to a specific program. And attraction really sits at the cusp between your positioning statement, and that could be something as large as your constitution or your value proposition as an association, or it could be why they're purchasing an ad in the magazine around what is the purpose of that either product and service, or what is that position of where they're coming on board as a member to be part of a larger group. And the program, the actual tangible component of them wanting to either pay money or give time to attract in to either your association or your product and service. Retention obviously is a crossover between your purpose, that positioning statement around purpose, and people. And then for lastly, to finish off the value model is really around the growth of utilizing more programs, not just coming to one event, being an active member, involved in a committee or something along those lines, and being engaged with the people. So I find this model a really good tool to use to challenge what you're doing from an existing process point of view, what your existing events and programs are, but also start filtering out what else we could offer in the association to grow revenue or to increase your products and services. But to create a value, you need a problem. So this is a bit of a tool I tend to use called the 99 problems model. And you start with a big clear whiteboard or a bunch of sticky notes, and you have a look at what all the known problems are in the marketplace. And often it's things like, cash flow and time and staff retention and all those sort of things. But what I'd like to challenge people on is to dig a little deeper around known spoken. Let's say it's a skill shortage, for an example, and dig a little bit deeper into known unspoken. And to go, what does that mean? What happens if you can't find the right staff? What happens if the staff can't keep up with the strength and the progress of your business? And then lastly, to really get into the meat of the problem, so you can develop the right value center for the member or the group or the sector. It's around the known unspoken. What does it actually mean to the business? Does it mean the business could fail if this problem isn't resolved? Is it because they might lose the business? They might not become a member anymore. So it's really those three-tiered layers of asking the questions, I suppose. How do we get down to a feeling, down to a belief structure? Because when we create the value center or the value proposition in that change within that strategy, we've got to obviously remember that we're dealing with people, and that emotional intelligence of really getting into I think, I feel, and then I believe or I behave. I find this works incredibly well, and it's fundamental basic human psychology. We're always worried about the fear or the problem first before the gain, and often in associations, especially with budgeting and those style of things, we'll often go straight to the value center as a proactive go, if we build it, they will come. And if it's not based on solving a problem, then often you won't get a lot of uptake with your strategies. I'll just pause for a second. Um, any questions on either the value center or the problem solving or helping the boards stay out of the business and articulate in that governance model? Just check. No questions at this stage. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on. Continuing on with the basics, we're looking at, say, measurable outcomes. So you've looked at your constitution from a revenue point of view because we have to start really big picture. We've gone to a value center. We know what problem we're solving, for example. And then, okay, how do you get more tangible? How do you go from a problem and creating a value center and big picture to actually something truly tangible that they're going to purchase or come to or invest their time in? I like to look at this on outcomes versus outputs as an example. It's a bit of a pendulum where when you're creating and you've got the first pass of a project or the first pass of an idea through those first few models, the next stage is really looking at whether it's loyalty or assets you're creating, and is it volume or value? And so often we'll create something that's about loyalty, but it won't have a lot of high value. So it's really having those people who are already spending money with us, who are already, and they're looking for just being elite. They're looking for being the platinum member, the highest value, the known. It's about respect and recognition. And you'll often look at that and go, okay, what are we building to make sure that we create more and more loyalty or move people to be more loyal? And then obviously then the goal here is to increase their value as well. Jane, you've got a question. Emily, do we have the ability for the team to come through?
Sure, we can do that. Does someone want to grab the mic? Does anyone have a question for Lindsay? Because if you do, just pop your hand up and then we can get you to grab the mic and ask a question. Oh, it was an error. She was super excited,
That's
Lindsay.
okay. That's all right. We've called you out anyway, so at least we know you're listening or you're not. So we'll see. Um, and then if we're not looking at something really tangible or go around loyalty, then you look at assets. So often the board or the senior leaders will be looking at the business model and go, long term, we're only making a small amount of profit and we want to create long-term assets in the organization. So that's then looking at, okay, how do we diversify our range and diversify our product, our services? How do you take an awards program into a national magazine? How do you take the national magazine and increase its distribution to then have something that comes out quarterly or even monthly? How does that become into full line socials where it has a community base? Which then might create committees, which then can create policy. And if you have enough information all the way through to, I've created TV shows with this model before, where we started with a pretty picture of something all the way through to a TV show that explained all the way to the consumer through trade. So that asset building is really important to understand of how to do incremental changes with the existing programs and services that you have to actually build up into something much larger. But I find This simple 2 by 2 matrix is a good way of looking and measuring what you currently do and going, okay, where else can we move something from diversification into being core, where it's creating high value and a large asset base long term, or down to the bottom component of this particular model where it's creating incredibly engaged people. So it's a great tool to utilize. Um, Second last on the basics is around doing a test model. So once we've created, we know this, we know there's a problem that needs a solution. We've created the value center, and we've looked at whether it's going to be a long-term asset or loyalty base. It's a bit of a test model of how we communicate the benefits of strategy. Is what I call the annual report test. You go, what you're changing and what you're putting in. How would you report on this in the annual report next year? What volume and value would it look like? Um, how would this result in an improvement in the P&L or an improvement in the balance sheet or improvement of cash flow from a business point of view? But then what does it look like on the front pages of the annual report on the benefit to the member? And would it, if it's going to benefit 20% of the membership, is that a full page, etc.? This is a bit of a visual test on going, are we doing busy work or are we doing something that's truly going to impact and actually people are going to want to read and see and follow and create a fear of missing out? Uh, to Often you'll look at a project and have to do a bit of a skills matrix around time management for your staff because good ideas often require a large amount of resources. So you putting a reporting structure around the project or around the revenue creation model will often, I suppose, be challenged by where are the resources going to come from. And so often people, go, I'm always busy and there's too much to do. And in an association, that's really, really common because, you never know when the next phone call is going to get picked up and the customer and the member is going to go, I need this now. And suddenly you've got a reactionary model. It's often a really important thing to do once a year is having a look at for every day a month that you're investing in a particular program, could be the next event, or it could be something as big as your annual conference where it might take up 3 days a week for 3 months. Every day is about 5% of your time. It's about 20-ish working days per month across the year. And it's often really important in reporting and resourcing, not just in an annual report, but internally around where that 5%, where those day a month are going to see if the result of the new revenue stream model is aligning with the impact it's having on the resources. And it'll often challenge you of working out what not to do, where to stop and what to shut down if you're not getting a reportable result or a better result for members if it's taking up more than a day a month or 5% of your time. The last component around the basics around strategy and revenue creation is understanding the fifth P of marketing. Often associations are viewed as a marketing business. We market to government, call it advocacy. We market to students and call it training. We market to members and call it services. But beyond all that promotion and branding and servicing that we actually do, a lot of the big difference between associations and corporates is what I like to call the fifth P of marketing. And the fifth P of marketing is politics. And it's not around advocacy or representation. Politics is that emotive connection that you'll get when you launch a new revenue stream, when you launch a new product or a service, or whether you're trying to change what we've always done, when you're trying to move, because change management is what we do in associations, is that pushback or pull through of the politics. Members are incredibly passionate about this, the club, the relationship, the association that they're a part of. And it's very important from a strategy to look at that fifth P of politics and go, how is this going to impact the membership? And there might be certain sectors of the membership that have high impact. You might have a legacy model where it's life members have a lot of impact, or a particular age group, or a particular sector or industry division, or a particular type of member, organizational versus independent or individual. All of those things play a part. And I would encourage all of you as strategists to remember what I call the fifth P of marketing, around that politics, to go, okay, we might have all the logic and reason and business models correct, but what's going to be the immediate pushback? What's going to be the 20% of the members who are going to love this and take it on board, and the 20 or 30% that are not going to like change, and what are we going to put around it? So I would definitely encourage to look at this for sure. So those are the basics around alignment for a constitution. Value center, are you creating an additional value, or are you adding to the existing one, or is it something completely new? What problem are you solving? Have a look at outputs versus outcomes around assets versus loyalty, volume versus value, to make sure that's reporting. That leads into obviously different forms of reporting, whether it's internal or external, because that will often refine your project and revenue creation as well. And then overarching, remember that emotional intelligence around the fifth P, and the politics of what's going to be the noise that it's going to create, whether it be positive or negative. So I'll just pause for a second. Any questions so far? We're about a little over halfway, or a little about three-quarters of the way through any of the presentation. There's a lot of information there. Do you see this as being, these models being practical to use? Is there anything in specific that you would like to ask around how to use these models in creating a revenue stream? Please type on in the chat or raise your hand. Or my monotone voice has put you all to sleep. I hope that's not the case. Okay, we'll keep moving. There's one item I want to cover around when you're trying to get a new revenue stream model through, or trying to create it. Keeping the board involved to make sure that you get a yes when you're asking for more funds, more resourcing, is separating the objectives and key results from the key performance indicators. What I tend to do, and these in the corporate world can be interchangeable or used, I like to separate them out to help keep the board and leadership model of what's being reported on, and what the key result or output they're looking for, outcome they're looking for at a high level, from the tangible, how are we tracking, what's this look like, what's the indication of whether we're on track or not, and allowing you to be nimble. And if you utilize these two tools around OKRs versus KPIs, you'll be able to keep that separation of leadership and board from actually doing the day-to-day job much, much easier. Whereas if you're using just one of these models across the entire organization, you're encouraging board and senior leadership, and a lot of other people have an opinion on the day-to-day tasks. So I find this works really well. A little bit busier of a slide is the next one of how to see the two as different. From an objective and key result, again, that board and senior leadership component, we want that sort of outcome orientated set period of time. Think of it from a budgetary point of view of what's the outcome over the 3 to 5 year period, or over the next quarter. Whereas key performance indicators is really that ongoing, continuous tracking, that weekly, monthly goal to move forward. So an example of how to separate these is a conference. And there are so many components and moving parts of a conference, but we'll often have a new director or a new person come into the organization that's really passionate about one component or one part around how the media is being utilized, or the communication tool, a floor plan, or even the color of the banner. People get incredibly passionate about things that mean a lot to them. And you're trying to run 1,000 different items to improve the revenue and expand on a conference into a seminar or into a convention and beyond. I would definitely use this as a bit of a tool to, I suppose, take governance and what I like to term govern nuance, just tweak the model to ensure that you can separate from an OKR to a KPI to allow the day-to-day to continue, while reporting and giving people at a higher level, seeing that we are progressing and are moving forward without getting caught in the weeds. I've used this for many years. I find it incredibly useful to get so much more done. Um, one of I suppose, the bits I wouldn't mind more interaction on, if you're up for it, is how to launch new revenue streams. I've always used the Kaizen principle, so the Japanese philosophy around consistent improvement. My tweak on it is really around what the five I's. So inspiration, um, working with your culture and your team to look at how everyone can contribute on improvement. You'd be surprised how many new revenue streams come out of existing programs. Taking a conference into a convention, taking a convention into policy statements or into a journal. Those tweaks of items that you've already got an existing amount of resources placed in, it's so much easier to take an existing working program and expand and use your existing model as inspiration to create the new one. From an innovation point of view, fixing processes is incredibly important. Often your revenue streams will come out of when you look at an existing process and you can cut three components away or stop doing something. Um, it's improvement is often process, not people. We'll often, as humans, get really caught up in the he said, she said, or we can't do something, or so we've always done it, etc., because of a choice around people. I would definitely look at separating people versus processes. Iteration, continuous 90-day cycles. I've spoken at length over the years around a ready, fire, aim, or launching a new product every 90 days. Um, the ability to constantly look at what the next quarter is launching, what is the iteration of existing program to create a new one, how can we create a new revenue stream that will fix a current model. So an example I've helped someone with recently is they've got a long-term membership model that's tiered, that's very hard to turn off. So we're creating a new membership model completely that will run in parallel to elevate, to create a new form of membership and a new style of offering to eventually turn the other one off. They can't just stop an existing one that's been in place so long. So that launching of a new product, that innovation, that inspiration model has come from an existing problem and not being able to turn it off into a new one. Doing more with less is almost a demand constantly from most boards and most businesses. But often that means what can you turn off? It's very easy for people to use these tools to create more work. I think they're just as important to look at the data and say, what can we stop doing from a strategy point of view? And how do we use these to create different revenue streams or a better return on investment for the revenue streams? Because our members are our shareholders, and the goal here is to get a better return or a better result, which is more services utilizing the profit that we've made. And last is that invention of what would it look like if we had unlimited resources. So often you'll get your team together and go, okay, what is the smallest thing we could do to make the biggest benefit? Or if there was, and then spin that to go, if there was unlimited time and money, what would be launched to make the biggest benefit? And they're the five I's I use to try and get consistent improvement. Um, Lastly, to clear takeaways to wrap this up in the time allotted for half an hour is alignment is all about clarity. It's what turns busy work into impact. Having that clear understanding from governance all the way through to task. If you get that right when you're creating a project, is the easiest way to get approval at every level and acceptance at every level for a new revenue stream. Strategy is all about delegation at each stage, and that's really separating board leadership and tasks, starting small and failing fast, innovation and iteration, using those tools to make sure that we're coming up with new ideas and testing them quickly and failing fast. Value will always create new members. Value will always create people that want to come onto a new one. It's that value creation is so important, and often it's a relaunch of an existing program to exponentially grow your revenue. And the formula I tend to use is positions, people, and programs equals performance. So again, feel free to have a use those. I'll make the slides available through Angela. Thank you so much for your time. I will stay on and answer any questions you want. But that is the really quick overview of how to create your revenue streams through a groups of models. And if you have any questions, my details are on the screen. Happy to help in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Lindsay. I feel this would be a great opportunity to open up the mic for anybody to ask a question directly of you.
Mhm.
It's an awesome opportunity, everybody. And if you want to talk, pop up your hand. No question is too silly. And Lindsay is the best person to reinforce this, because if we're not asking questions, we're not learning, we're not pushing the boundaries. So feel free, grab the mic or chuck it into the chat box. We want to spend the next 5 or so minutes being able to go through these. I did love Lisa's piece in there, Lindsay, the 5th P. She says we always call it the pub test.
Yeah, I think we've all, it's hard to explain it to anyone who's not in the association world. Is to go, okay, right, yeah, the politics or the emotional connection people have, yeah, is amazing. So we've got a couple of hands raised.
All right, fantastic. So for those who have their hands raised, I am going to assume that you want to talk. So I'm going to give Anne-Marie the opportunity to grab the mic. Let's go.
Thank
Hi,
you,
Anne-Marie.
Angela, and hi, Lindsay. I'm now in my 5th membership association. This is my first CEO role, and I have, for the past 3, battled the same challenge when it comes to looking to grow revenue, and that is price versus value, and getting people within the association to understand value, and that raising prices is not necessarily an evil thing. Obviously, they're concerned about the members and how the members will react to an increased price. But for me, focusing on value is if the value's there, the money will be there to pay for it. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question, Anne-Marie. And I wouldn't want $1 every time I've been asked something similar to this one. So there's always a historical, I think associations, unfortunately, because they've been around for so long, and they will, because they're multi-generational, they will be around for so long. There's often an expectation, especially with certain volunteer directors, that the best thing we can do for the members is to reduce their membership fees or reduce their costs. And that often comes from the fundamental belief that non-for-profit is a strategy rather than a tax status. So I would initially train, and sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs here if you've already done this, but I would always initially train and induct new directors and remind existing directors and other groups, whether they be strong committees or whatever structure you have, is to understand that non-for-profit is a tax status. And the for-purpose organization that you're a part of needs to make more money if it's going to do more good. And if the Constitution sets out the current objectives are some form of promotion, protection, and growth, because that's what all of the constitutions do. It's generally long-winded, but it fundamentally comes down to growing the association for the benefit of and for the members. You have to increase fund. You have to increase your funds and increase expectation of that. It's also there often your price points, whether they be membership or conference venue costs or allocation of the magazine. It doesn't really matter what. They'll often go, well, there's no expectation of CPI or there's no expectation of increased value. So I have tended to use, if you've got a roadblock that's so large that you're just not going to get past, and you can't train people to go, this is a corporation. It's because your association, if it's limited by guarantee, or you're a society, you're a corporate. You just don't pay shareholders. You have to invest back in. So if you can't get through an increase, and we'll use membership as an example, I would create a new product. I would create a new form of membership or a new edition to then break the cycle. If you can train, then it's about understanding that as a value proposition in comparison to the corporate world, the association is far better positioned to deliver on value. So without specifics, I suppose I can't go more into it, but I have launched new products to get around old ones. I've turned ones off and I've used large communication strategies to change that mentality for sure. So please reach out anytime. Happy to talk specifics offline.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa, I'm going to invite you to take the mic now.
Hi, Lisa.
We're just going to get you to unmute, Lisa, so we can hear your question. There we go.
Thank you. I've got a question around, because we deal all around Queensland and we've been delivering, we want to make sure people in regions see that we're trying to give them similar service as people that are easier to deliver to in SEQ.
Yeah.
We're finding some regions really challenging to engage the people. So we've run a couple of face-to-face events over the years in certain locations, and they just, I don't know, they're just apathetic regions, and it's not just our sector. If you know, it happens across other sectors. What are you, I guess the challenge is we don't want to not service them, but coming up with new ways that we can be able to deliver to them without them getting annoyed that we're not going, because if you don't go, they get annoyed, but then you go and they don't turn up. So in terms of, I guess, cost benefit of not doing something versus, you know, still trying to please them is really difficult.
Fully understand the question. I've seen examples of to show benefit to rural areas, they get 50% off, and it tends to send the association broke, or the expectation that you run the national conference in, you know, Darwin or Perth every other year, and the numbers drop off and it sends the association broke. It's a pretty common question in associations. I find the way around it is probably in three parts, but the primary one is about clear communication of consistency. So knowing that every year, roughly the same time, you do the roadshow, so there is that physical presence to get people together, and it's really clearly articulated and a plan around that fear of missing out. You know, we're here at this time of the year. You know, we've brought in you know, the suppliers and the sponsors and the groups and what have you, and then there's a bit of a roadshow. I've seen that done really well in far-reaching rural areas that are in agricultural areas, where every year there's a you know something that happens in the off time, and it becomes a large event, but it's done, you know, only in the morning at one location, and then 3 hours later only in the evening. So there's a few different tools there, but I think consistency. That regular, we're always here every quarter, or we're here this time of the year every this time of the year every year, is really important from a rural point of view. But also, I suppose, you know, especially post-COVID, the ability for us to then push out, you know, webinars, that sort of stuff globally and everywhere really helped. But we're still human. There has to be some form of connection. It doesn't have to be bigger than Ben-Hur. I've used a model in the past where it was less about the association and more about the sponsors and suppliers in the market, because they're often in those regions, you know, doing their cycles as well, and tagging on to a group of competing suppliers to create an event around that where it's a little bit more low key. You know, it's a barbecue or something like that. It doesn't have to be as bigger than Ben-Hur, but the association was dragged along with where the cash flow is coming from the supplier, depending on what type of industry you're in. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's similar to what I've been, thinking is leveraging off our partners who are already there, and yeah, that might work in some of those regions.
Yeah, no, thank you. Again, reach out directly, and happy to run through specifics when it's not public information. But no, I would definitely utilize your corporates better. Is the easiest way to do that if you're a small association in rural areas. You know, you'll always have plenty of people in Cairns, and not many people at Longreach. So it's a bit tough in that state, being the size you are. That's for sure. We have a question also from Mandy around the question of the continued pace of change. I'll answer that one. I'm quite an energetic person, so I find it easy to run at speed. I like to sprint. I'm not a jogger. So, but I've been sprinting for probably as long as I've been in business, if we're going to continue on with that metaphor. Um, Continued pace of change again comes back to the, I suppose, how it's communicated. Consistent improvement doesn't mean that you're launching a massive new program every quarter. Sometimes it can be incremental. So it's really a cultural decision as a leader to highlight that change is a natural part of business, and it's continuous. And whether that's improving how your CRM is being utilized, or whether it's a different format for the convention, or whether it's a whole new CRM you're about to launch, all of those things are all about change management. So I would I would help people understand that continued pace of change is a culture and it's about improvement. And this is why I tend to use the Kaizen principle, where it works really well in lean manufacturing. For Toyota, they're the most famous examples in the business world. But from an association point of view, we often get caught up with changing of directors and changing of our governance models back to, oh, we've always done it this way and we can't, we've got to consolidate. Consolidation is often an excuse for not growing, and the economy will always continue to expand. There'll always be CPI. Outside of the, random recessions, the expectation from a business is to constantly grow. So I would challenge anyone that wants just to consolidate to go, well, okay, what are we dropping off? What are we reducing? I don't think I've ever come across a director that's happy to go backwards while using the word consolidate. I think consolidate's a very dangerous word if it's used as an excuse not to keep expanding and growing and learning.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I've just dropped a little note out. Any last questions? This is your chance. I want to use the opportunity, Lindsay, just to talk about the direction of where we've gone with Answers recently with the new website launch, but we've got the new online community coming, everybody. And I know most of you are part of the existing community. That one has shut down for a short little while. We're going across to a new, fresh platform. Lindsay is going to be a part of that platform. We have special interest groups, and Lindsay is going to be right amongst it. So we want you to continue reaching out and having a chat, because small little questions lead to big ideas and they lead to very interesting projects. So it's an opportunity to keep that conversation moving forward. So anyone with last questions? I'm going to say you've blown them away, Lindsay. You know what it is? You've shared those special 5Ps. They get me every time. I've heard this a few times now, but every time I go, oh, that fits in there and that fits in there. And I always think of your 90-day fail fast program release. And I know that this scares a lot of people. We've done this for the last 6 months, and it's under the inspiration of Lindsay. And it is a little tiring, but I think when you look at the bigger picture piece and you go, you know what, I've done those, I can stop now before I reassess and go, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And I've learned so much from you about that, Lindsay. And I think it's good to probably sprint, then jog, then walk. We all have a different pace. But do you have any last words you want to share with us today?
No, thanks everybody. Really appreciate the kind words. Please reach out and say good day. Just start. I mean, that's half the battle of revenue is not knowing where to start. So often it's a simple phone call or a simple chat with a fellow peer in the association world to go, what would you do here? And I think one step forward, is still a forward step, and that would be what I would encourage everyone to do is just take one step forward.
Absolutely. So we've got a short survey, which is going to pop up in a minute. We are going to get the fantastic Emily to share a copy of today's recording, Lindsay's contact details. If you aren't already connected with him on LinkedIn, please do. He's getting very active nowadays, and he's out and about sharing these insights all the time. So feel free, reach out, stay tuned. Thank you everyone so much for coming. This is our last webinar of the year. So Lindsay, a huge thanks for closing out the 2025 webinar year for us. To everybody, stay safe, Slow down, have an amazing Christmas break, and we will be in touch with you all soon. Have a great day.